There was once an unforgiving age on Earth. A world where the slower were left behind. The weaker were devoured. And those who failed to evolve in time vanished from history. Over millions of years, that race for survival gave rise to the most terrifying creatures in history. This is the Cretaceous Period, the great arena of the dinosaurs. Dawn was just breaking over the ancient forest as an Ankylosaurus slowly made its way through the mist-covered undergrowth. It did not need to run fast, nor did it need to hide, because its entire body was already a deadly layer of defense. That was Ankylosaurus, over 6 meters long, weighing nearly 4 tons. From the edge of the forest, a T-Rex begins to close in. It knows the armor across the back is nearly impossible to penetrate. So it does not bite right away. It presses in from the side with its massive body. Trying to throw Ankylosaurus off balance. If it can flip its prey over, the soft belly will be exposed. But Ankylosaurus lowers its body. All 4 legs brace firmly against the ground. Its head drops low to protect its neck. Its clubbed tail lashes sideways like a hammer of bone. The predator recoils. Ankylosaurus does not need to give chase. It simply stands there, low, heavy, unyielding. A living fortress that forces even the tyrant king to think twice before attacking. And you, where in the world are you watching this showdown from? Don't take your eyes off the screen, because this thrilling journey through the Cretaceous has only just begun. Around 145 million years ago, Pangaea was still breaking apart. Continents pulled apart. Oceans flooded the low-lying lands. And Earth began to take on a new face. In the north, many forests were still locked in the cold. There, Yutyrannus, a primitive relative of T-Rex, was hunting through the snowy forest. A thick layer of feathers helped it retain heat, and turned it into an ambush phantom in the cold white wilderness. But then, the planet began to warm. Sea levels rose. Shallow seas spread across the world. At the same time, flowering plants began to spread. They covered valleys, plains, and riverbanks. A vast new source of food was created. and it would pave the way for the explosion of herbivorous dinosaurs. Amid the magnolia forests, thousands of Edmontosaurus move along the Great River. They were classic representatives of the hadrosaurids, the duck-billed dinosaurs, one of the most successful groups of herbivores in the late Cretaceous. Their bodies could reach up to 12 meters in length. They weighed between 4 and nearly 6 tons. In Wyoming, in the United States, scientists have discovered Edmontosaurus specimens preserved almost like mummies. After more than 66 million years, many patches of skin still show clear traces. Tiny scales, fine wrinkles across the rib cage, and even evidence that a fleshy crest once ran along their bodies, gradually transitioning into a row of spines along the tail. More remarkably, their hind feet had a hoof-like structure, a detail suggesting that these dinosaurs may have been highly adapted to moving across the soft ground along riverbanks. Inside their jaws were hundreds of grinding teeth, tightly packed in layered rows. As older teeth wore down, new ones continued to replace them. This allowed Edmontosaurus to process large amounts of tough vegetation every day. But in a world filled with predators, the larger the Edmontosaurus herd, the easier it was to become a target. By the end of the Cretaceous period, the race for survival had created a very different kind of prey: Triceratops. When fully grown, it could weigh nearly 9 tons, the equivalent of a large African elephant. On its head were 2 horns nearly 1 meter long. Behind them was a massive bony frill encircling the neck. A shield, a display signal, and possibly a weapon for intimidating rivals. Some hypotheses suggest that blood may have been pumped into this frill, making it stand out more during confrontations. Triceratops' skin was not soft or vulnerable either. Some well-preserved fossils show that its body was covered in large, rugged scales. For a predator, biting into it was like biting into a living rock. But Triceratops was still a herbivore. Its powerful beak helped it slice through tough shrubs. The teeth at the back of its jaws crushed fibrous vegetation. It did not kill to survive. But if cornered, Triceratops could turn itself into a giant spear. In the south, on the hot, humid continent of Gondwana, the vast plain still belonged to the giant sauropods. There, size itself was a defense. Argentinosaurus was one of the largest creatures ever to walk the earth. Its body could stretch over 30 meters long. and weighed tens of tons. Each of its footsteps shook the ground. Against a creature of that size, predators could not attack recklessly. But enormous size came at a cost. It needed a massive amount of food. It had to move across vast stretches of land, and its young could still become targets. So even the greatest giant was never truly safe. In the Cretaceous period, every survival strategy had its own weakness. The explosion of herbivores created an abundant food source, one that sustained the planet's ultimate predator, Tyrannosaurus rex. At the edge of the valley, a mother T-Rex silently watches over her young. In front of them is Didelphodon, a small ancient mammal weaving through the low shrubs. The mother T-Rex does not rush to strike. She simply closes off every escape route in silence. The juvenile charges forward. Its first bite is still clumsy, tearing through empty air. The prey immediately slips into the tall grass, trying to vanish into the shadows of the trees. But the mother T-Rex has already stepped sideways, cutting off its escape route. And that moment is enough. The juvenile lunges forward, clamping down on the target with its still developing jaws. This is only a small hunt, but it is the first lesson of a predator. Today, it has only learned how to take down a fragile creature. But years later, when its skull is heavier, its jaws are stronger, and its instincts have been forged through countless failures, it will be powerful enough to face the colossal prey of the Cretaceous period. At 12 meters long and weighing around 9 tons, T-Rex was the perfect definition of prehistoric terror. It was both a hunter and a scavenger, and in some cases even its own kind could become food. The head of a T-Rex was truly terrifying. Its skull was reinforced like a living weapon, and its jaws held 60 serrated teeth, designed to pierce through flesh and tear massive chunks of meat from its prey. But to operate such a massive head, T-Rex also had to control a dangerous problem: heat. On the roof of its skull were 2 large openings called the dorsotemporal fenestrae. Recent studies suggest this area may have contained a network of blood vessels that helped regulate temperature inside the head, like a biological radiator. To balance that massive skull, T-Rex needed a long, heavy tail extending behind it. Its body became a living lever. The head and jaws were the primary weapon. The tail was the counterweight. Bartar and the arms, positioned between those 2 balancing forces, gradually lost their importance in hunting. What do you think made T-Rex so terrifying? Share your thoughts in the comments. Out on the vast plain, a Triceratops has fallen. Beside it stands a T-Rex, its breathing heavy, its jaws still stained with blood. The prey's horns still point toward the sky, like one final warning. This was not an easy victory. But today, the predator has survived, and this enormous meal will be enough to sustain it for the days ahead. In a world deeply divided by oceans, evolution did not follow the same path everywhere. Around 96 million years ago, global sea levels were near one of the highest points in Earth's history. They created an ocean world no dinosaur dared to enter. But that was about to change. Hidden in this mangrove swamp is a predator uniquely evolved to conquer the final frontier. A pioneer among dinosaurs, Spinosaurus, the largest theropod ever known, reaching up to 15 meters in length. It is also the only dinosaur believed to have lived a semi-aquatic lifestyle. A paddle-shaped tail, a 1.8-meter sail on its back, a long, slender snout with conical teeth specialized for catching fish. However, to sustain its enormous body, Spinosaurus had to undertake long migrations. Its goal was to hunt Onchopristis, an ancient sawfish that gathered in schools of thousands during the mating season. Along the way, Spinosaurus had to avoid threats from every direction. Alanka from the skies, Elosuchus from the water, and even Careless, the tyrant dinosaur of Africa. To survive and protect its family, Spinosaurus made full use of the brilliant sail on its back. Scientists believe this was the ultimate warning signal. When that sail rose above the surface of the water, it sent a powerful message: stay away, or face a fight to the death. But the Cretaceous was not one single world. Across the ocean, ancient North America was becoming a different battlefield. Before T-Rex ruled Hell Creek, this land had already been shaped by giants, swamps, mud, and new killers. To understand that story, we must go back further, back to the late Jurassic, back to the Morrison Formation. Standing at the apex of North America's food chain, roughly 115 million years ago, was Acrocanthosaurus, one of the most terrifying predators of the early Cretaceous. Running from its neck down to its back was a ridge of high, prominent neural spines, creating a powerful, muscular sail. Scientists believe this structure may have been used for display, heat regulation, or energy storage. But the reputation of Acrocanthosaurus did not come from its appearance. It came from its lethality. Every part of its body served a single purpose: to hold tight and to inflict fatal wounds. Look at its jaws, over 1.2 meters long, lined with thick, serrated teeth, perfect for slicing deep through the thick skin and muscle fibers of its prey. With a bite force of around 17,000 newtons, any creature caught in this trap paid in blood. Unlike Tyrannosaurus, which would appear tens of millions of years later, Acrocanthosaurus retained powerful, flexible arms. 3 curved, sharp claws on each hand could pin down a victim, keeping the prey under absolute control while the jaws continued to tear through soft tissue. This was not a hunt won by a single crushing blow. It was a process of attrition, blood loss, exhaustion, and collapse. Yet, Acrocanthosaurus may have been even more dangerous than that. In Paluxy, Texas, multiple tracks heading in the same direction were recorded in an ancient mudflat. While not definitive proof, they open up the possibility of coordinated pack hunting behavior. But not all terror came from giants. Some dangers came in much smaller packages. They were faster and far smarter. Enter Deinonychus, measuring only about 3 to 4 meters long and weighing less than 80 kilograms. Yet, it was one of the most successful predators of ancient North America. It was this very species that helped revolutionize how scientists view dinosaurs, no longer seen as slow, lumbering reptiles. Instead, they were dynamic and highly agile. The body of Deinonychus was built for mobility. Powerful hind legs, a stiffened tail acting as a counterweight, allowing it to pivot on a dime and maintain stability while pursuing prey. Its most terrifying weapon sat on the second toe, a curved, sickle-shaped claw stretching over 10 centimeters long, sharp, thin, and constantly held off the ground during locomotion to prevent wear and tear. Today, many researchers believe it was not used for slashing, but for pinning, locking the victim in place during the struggle. With its powerful hind limbs, Deinonychus could leap directly onto its victim, using its weight and limbs to latch on, while the sickle claws sank deep into the flesh. Feathered arms fanned out for balance, as its serrated jaws repeatedly tore away chunks of flesh at close quarters. The prey rarely died instantly. They bled out slowly, grew exhausted, and collapsed with the assassin still anchored to their body. Don't let their size fool you. Their ambition knew no bounds. Fossils reveal that Deinonychus routinely took down Ankylosaurus, an animal weighing dozens of times more than itself. In the shallow seas stretching across the continental shelves, long-necked plesiosaurs dominated for millions of years. One of the most notable was Elasmosaurus, with a body length exceeding 12 meters. They were cunning ambush predators. From below, it would suddenly surge up into a school of fish, an ambush strategy not unlike that of modern great white sharks. Sharing this kingdom with them were ichthyosaurs and ancient sea turtles, lineages that had ruled the seas since the beginning of the Triassic period. But that reign was slowly coming to an end. Eventually, the Cretaceous oceans gave way to monsters twice the size of killer whales, Mosasaurs, the apex predators of the sea. They were lizards that evolved from land-dwelling ancestors, abandoning the shore to return and conquer the oceans. Their bodies were long and flexible, much like snakes. Their limbs had fully transformed into powerful paddles, and their tails developed a large fluke, helping them reach maximum swimming speed. Look at a fully grown Mosasaurus, 17 meters long, patrolling its domain. It possessed massive jaws lined with sharp teeth angled inward. Hidden deep within the roof of its mouth was a second row of teeth, an advanced weapon that helped it grip and swallow even the slipperiest prey. Farther from shore, in deeper waters, moved Tylosaurus, a close relative of Mosasaurus, slightly smaller, but no less dangerous. It possessed a sturdy, bony snout used to ram straight into the sides of its rivals. Beneath the shadow of these monsters, life continued to flourish. Sea urchins and starfish thrived. Coral reefs continued to expand. Diatoms, a type of shelled plankton, began to spread throughout the oceans. Above the land and the waves, another conquest was unfolding. The Cretaceous skies belonged to a magnificent group of creatures, pterosaurs. This was the period when they reached their greatest size in Earth's history. Perched atop that steep limestone outcrop is Quetzalcoatlus. When moving on all fours, it stood nearly as tall as a full-grown giraffe. Its long neck supported a massive skull, ending in a long, pointed, toothless beak, like a steel spear. Quetzalcoatlus gently crouches, catching the warm air rising from the ground as it launches into the sky. Its wingspan, reaching up to 11 meters, did not need to flap often. Its hollow bone structure made its body astonishingly light, allowing it to glide for hundreds of kilometers along the coastlines in search of food. The threat to dinosaurs in Hatzeg. Across the ocean, on an isolated archipelago in ancient Europe, there was a subtropical land surrounded by deep seas, Hatzeg Island, a place where the usual rules no longer applied. On this island, where both space and food were limited, smaller was better. But that rule did not apply to predators. For them, bigger was absolute. The nightmare known as Hatzegopteryx had arrived. As tall as a giraffe, with a wingspan of 12 to 15 meters, this was one of the largest pterosaurs ever to exist. With no large theropod dinosaurs to compete with, it may have developed a more aggressive hunting strategy. Its unusual neck structure was short and packed with extremely powerful muscles. Combined with its broad jaws, this allowed it to lift small dinosaurs off the ground and finish them with a single shake. Although the largest pterosaurs were dominating the skies, this entire group of creatures was facing fierce competition. A completely new force. Birds were rapidly diversifying. The ancestors of diving birds, cormorants, pelicans, and modern sandpipers. All of them were appearing together during the Cretaceous Period. Although pterosaurs had ruled the skies for millions of years, in the end, it was another object from the sky that brought their age to an end, along with 75% of life on the planet. including the dynasty of the dinosaurs. Around 66 million years ago, the continuous shifting of the continents, the overexpansion of coastlines and oceans. All of this caused the planet's climate to begin fragmenting, becoming colder and drier. The magnolia and conifer forests near the poles began to endure long, freezing winters. Snow had begun to fall across the high latitudes. Earth was exhausted, and at this moment, a strike from outer space was more than the planet could endure. Many plant species that could not withstand the cold began to decline. This triggered a chain collapse among sensitive herbivores. Most of this rich diversity of life, including all non-avian dinosaurs, pterosaurs, long-necked marine reptiles, and ammonites, converged toward extinction in the KPG event. Land, sea, and sky would never be the same again. The Mesozoic era came to an end. As the eternal darkness of the impact winter slowly faded, the first rays of sunlight of the Cenozoic era shone down on a ruined planet. From deep burrows and charred tree hollows, small creatures began to emerge. They were shrew-like mammals, survivors that endured thanks to their small size, omnivorous diet, and ability to burrow for warmth. Alongside them were small feathered birds, the only surviving descendants of the dinosaur lineage. Every morning, when birdsong rises outside your window, you are still hearing the final echo of the Cretaceous Period. Nearly 80 million years after its explosive beginning, the glorious reign of the dinosaurs had faded deep into the past. Well, even so, the memories of a turbulent Cretaceous period and the race for survival among ancient rulers remain nature's immortal epic. Has there ever been an era more brutal than this? The answer may lie in your own perspective. Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And if you have watched this far, thank you so much for staying with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to keep exploring the greatest mysteries of the prehistoric world.